It leaked that the Montreal Canadiens will face off against the Winnipeg Jets in the 2026 Heritage Classic, and I'm here to tell you that this means the Canadiens' return to relevance is now official.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, and for making us here at the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. I do love saying that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeIt'sIan, and I am joined, as I always am, by Laura Saba, also known as the Actor Stick. Laura, the Montreal Canadiens and the Winnipeg Jets played against each other on Wednesday night in a nationally televised game, and the NHL did not find it in themselves to think this is a great opportunity to announce that next year these two teams will play in an outdoor game and the first Heritage Classic in 3 years. Who's running the ship? Like, what's going on over there?
Honestly, I don't know. They've been tripping all over themselves since the beginning of time, but this seems a little bit egregious because even if you weren't ready to announce it, the way that it leaked was so silly.
Yeah, the way that it leaked made it seem like you were ready to announce it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we'll cover that story, and I do believe that this is a sign that the Canadiens are re-entering the league's public consciousness as a team you have to put in these kinds of events. So we'll get into that, and then it's our mailbag. We have lots of questions. Asking about Arber Xhekaj playing forward, asking about Bryce Pickford, who's ripping it up with the Medicine Hat Tigers, asking about Olé-ing, which I know Laura and I sit on opposite ends of the fence on that, but we will cover both of our points of view on that. But let's start with the Heritage Classic. So Reddit user posted in the middle of the afternoon on Thursday a link that was to an NHL events website that listed the 2026 Tim Hortons Heritage Classic to be played between the Montreal Canadiens and the Winnipeg Jets on October 25th, 2026, to be played at Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg. That site has since been taken down, but other outlets have picked it up. Ultimately, like a website doesn't get to that stage without it being true. The NHL isn't building that with the impression that like this is something that they're not working on. Where are you at on outdoor games? I think like there's a lot of people are sort of on both ends of the fence here. They either really love them or really hate them. Where are you at on the outdoor game as a concept?
I think it's really fun for the fans. I do think that the specialness of it has been diluted a little bit. But at the end of the day, like I think like it's definitely something that's for the fans, right? It's a little bit harder to watch from television. It's like, if you're not able to go, like I can tell you for a fact, I'm not going to be able to go to that game, right?
No.
It's less exciting for me. But I do like that the Montreal Canadiens have kind of become a team that the NHL is more willing to feature as well.
Yeah, I think that's sort of where I go with this from a relevance standpoint, right? Like the Canadiens, the way that the NHL determines you are relevant is by giving you an event like this. I know the Canadiens are hosting it, but they're being brought in to play in it, which is effectively, not the same thing, but effectively we want you in this game.
Yeah.
Like the last time the Canadiens played in an outdoor game, Laura, do you remember when it was?
Was it in 2016?
It was after that. So 2016 was the Winter Classic against Boston. There was the Centennial Classic. I believe that must have been 2019 or 2017, something like that, between Ottawa and Montreal. Very cold night in Ottawa, and the Senators shut out the Canadiens in that game. They haven't been picked for these events in a while. And so for them to get this acknowledgement now is to say, okay, the Canadiens are now a product that the NHL can put on for the rest of the world to see. And that hasn't been the case in a long time.
So for me, I think one of the things too is that like I know we always joke around about how like Chicago or Pittsburgh always has to be in one of these.
Yeah.
But it is kind of true, right? But I do think that there's something really special about how passionate fans are in Winnipeg and giving them that. And I also think that there's something extremely special about making the Canadiens to be the opponent, because they could have chosen any other Canadian team. Obviously, it was going to be a Canadian team. Like, they don't do Heritage Classics between an American and a Canadian team. It's not what happens. They call it something else. And, it's like the Stadium Series or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, you could easily have chosen a team like Calgary or a team like Edmonton for this. So I think, like, that's definitely something, or even Toronto. But I think that's definitely something that's, the Canadiens do feature in these, I think, a little bit more often than other teams, just because I feel like they are one of the marquee franchises, even though they might not be the most valuable franchise or whatever. I still think that, like, they're the flagship Canadian franchise. No matter what Toronto fans might say, like, there's something about the history of the Montreal Canadiens that other people find appealing, like neutral people find appealing, much more so than Toronto makes.
Yeah. And look, I think this gives me one thing I've been dying for, which is a third jersey for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the one I'm currently wearing, the 2016 Winter Classic, they literally wore this one, I believe, twice. Once in the Winter Classic and once later that season when Boston came into Montreal. Both the teams wore those Winter Classic jerseys. I think part of that too, I know they were talking about it on Bastien and Godin, in that the Quebec Nordique jerseys that the Avalanche wear. The thought was that when they came into Montreal, the Nordique jerseys would be worn, but that would mean the Canadiens would typically have to wear red. But now that there's jersey sponsors, the home jersey is not the same as the road jersey. The guys who paid for the road jersey or the home jersey paid for 41 home dates in the regular season.
Yeah.
So you can't really do that. So, this might give them an opportunity to get a new jersey, to get, all of that sort of fun stuff. With the whole viewing experience with these outdoor games, I do agree, like the standard way that you watch the hockey game where the broadcast camera is like on one side of the ice, I find that that's oftentimes difficult to follow along with what's happening. However, I find that they get really creative with the other cameras. A lot of times they're playing, like, this will be in a football stadium. This will be in the stadium that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers play in. They get the overhead camera that they get in football, right? The ones that are on the wires that they can just run alongside the field. I like those. And I like that they don't do them every game, because that's how I know I'm watching an outdoor game. I just, in preparation for this, watched the highlights from the 2016 Winter Classic. And like, there was one goal, I believe it was the Brendan Gallagher goal, where the shot is coming from a literal blimp. A blimp is flying around the stadium, and like, you see there's these specks that are Montreal Canadiens about to score on Tuukka Rask. Like, it's very funny to me that, like, that's possible for these sorts of things.
Now it's going to be drones.
Yeah, it's going to be drones. It's going to be robots. What's your sort of what are you hoping the Canadiens do with that jersey? They're going to make a new jersey for this.
Mm-hmm.
No team has ever gone into one of these games without making some kind of specialty uniform. Yeah. What are you hoping the Canadiens do in this one?
They go to the 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the one I want. That's the one I've wanted, like, ever since like other teams started doing third jerseys. I was like, I'd like that.
Yeah, I like I believe it's the 45 throwback with the, it's the white sweater with still the blue stripe in the middle. And, the C is a little bit more rustic, I'll say. Like, it's not completely closed. It's very much a vintage looking design. Yeah. What I liked about the 16 Winter Classic jersey was that they sort of took elements from a bunch of different parts of their history.
Yes.
Like on the sleeve, on the patch on the sleeve is the globe that they wore for a year or so because they were the world champions. The logo is sort of a remnant of what those old uniforms were. So I kind of like those parts of it, that they made something wholly unique, but took parts from what else they had, from other parts of their history. I'm really hoping that it's just more creative than the Centennial Classic jersey that they had against Ottawa. That thing was terrible.
I hated
see people
that
walking around in them all the time at games. I'm like, it's just not for me. As much as I love the barber pole, I know they're not doing a barber pole, so I can at least put that away. Any final thoughts on this?
They need to bring that back. They brought it back in a pajama form. They need to bring it back in just like a long sleeve. Bring it back as a long sleeve.
Yeah, I think so. I love it. again, that's one of those jerseys that you either really love or you despise, and there's no in between. I know Down Goes Brown. He just wrote an article for The Athletic about what teams should be thankful for. And I believe the one for the Canadiens was that they don't have to wear the barber pole jersey. And I'm just like, how are you still this upset about the barber pole jersey? That's nuts.
Everybody is upset about the power. It's just the Habs fans that love it.
Yeah. Fine. But isn't that what this is for? Like, you're not selling jerseys to other teams. This is, and this will be the last point on this before we move on. This was always my biggest complaint about the Quebec Nordique jersey coming back and the Hartford Whaler jersey coming back, which is that, are you really selling that to your fans, or are you selling that to fans of every other team who's just like, hey, that's a nice jersey? Because that's what I always thought it was. I thought it was lame, and it was just a way to outsource your fandom to other people. Anyway, I'll leave that there. And we come back. It's Friday. We're opening the mailbag. We've got some great questions, and we'll get started with one about Arber Xhekaj potentially playing forward, and we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. This is how it works. You're going to pull up the app, you're going to see the layout, and it's going to look so simple to scroll through the matchups, compare seat views, pick a game, tap a section, have your tickets located within minutes. There's no confusion. There's no hunting for fine print. The prices include your fees up front, which I love. There's no last-second surprises at checkout and sticker shock when you realize how much the fees were. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets at every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, Game Time. Today's episode is also brought to you by Doer. The holidays are here, and this year I'm not stressing about what to wear or what to buy for my friends and family because I'll be wearing my Doers. These are the most comfortable pants and clothing I own, and they make me look good. Doer's denim and lifestyle apparel is engineered for movement and versatility. Whether I'm on the go traveling, lounging at home, or going to a nice dinner party, I look and feel great. If you don't have your own Doers yet, now is the time. I've been recommending it to all my friends. These are my favorite jeans to wear for any occasion. I'm going to work, I'm going to hang out with friends. They're my go-tos. I can really tell a difference with the high quality and the temper-regulating Coolmax fabrics. They keep me warm, but I don't overheat. Doer invented the original performance denim, and they give us the best of both worlds, combining classic jeanswear style and the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. Designed to look great and stay comfortable all day long, all year round. It's time for you to experience the comfort of Doer. I know you'll love them. Pick up a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Find Doer at your local retailers like Neon, Shredder, and MEC, or shop online at doer.ca/LockedOnCanadiens. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's DUER.ca/LockedOnCanadiens for 15% off. Doer.ca/LockedOnCanadiens. All right, we are back. Let's head into our mailbag. And this time, I believe we have a question from a first-time question asker. This comes to us from Ellie Matthews, who this weekend is the only Matthews that I want to hear from. What do you think of moving Arber Xhekaj to the wing? We have a glut on D, but his physicality makes him a valuable member of the team. The other day, a commentator was saying how having his brother up front to provide physicality on the offensive zone is very useful as a D-man, as Arber Xhekaj cannot jump up and join scrums. As a forward, he could provide a big body for net front presence, still have the policing effect for the team, and make room for some of the other D-men that we also do not want to have to part ways with. Also, I think it would be terrifying to the other team's defensemen to have to deal with both brothers on a line at least a couple times per game, and that would be super fun to watch. What are your thoughts on this, of moving Arber Xhekaj maybe temporarily to the wing?
I think Marty should experiment with it, but I do agree that it should be when Florian is still here. I would love like a Florian and Arber line, but who would center that? Like, you need somebody who can center that adequately. However, I do think that I find that out of all the players, I feel like he would be one of the ones who would have the toughest time adjusting to forward in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And so I do feel that, it's probably not, realistically, it's probably not something that's going to be successful for the Montreal Canadiens. But I think just for the shiggles, they should do it.
Yeah. If Victor Mete couldn't do it, I'm not too convinced that players can do this. And that was always the appeal of having Florian in the lineup at the same time, right? Is that they can both do those things. I mean, Arber has said in the past, like, my brother's the crazy one. That's the one you don't want to mess with.
I can't believe that's the crazy one.
And he's kind of right.
Yeah.
Arber, I think, yes, he's definitely got a screw loose in this department, but I think mostly he gets by on the fact that he's just massive and can outmuscle people. The way he ragdolled Adam Lowry around shouldn't be how that works. Adam Lowry's huge.
Yeah.
I think a lot of fans have come to this idea, and I think it comes from a good place. I kind of like the fact that you've got one on both ends, right? Like, you've got Florian for when you're on the forecheck and you've got a scrum in front of the net, and then you have Arber for when there's one in front of your own net.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, I think they're fine in that department. All right, let's head to a regular caller here, and Randy Hansen. Habs need a volume shooter on the team. Who would you like to see added to address this need? So who do you think would take a lot of shots for the Montreal Canadiens should they acquire them?
I mean, wasn't that Mike Hoffman and that didn't work out?
Yeah, it needs to be a more complete volume shooter. I pulled up the league leaders in shots at 5-on-5, and you will be shocked to hear that none of the guys in like the top 10 are going anywhere. Jason Robertson, Cutter Gauthier, Nathan McKinnon, Jack Eichel, Zach Werenski. Zach Werenski's crazy. Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Gauthier, or Dylan Gunther, sorry, Kyle Connor. Then we get to a body who I think could move in Philip Forsberg out of Nashville. They're kind of going to be rebuilding, I believe. That's an interesting one. He doesn't play center. But maybe with Kapanen playing the way that he is and Doc coming back, maybe you put off that second line center hunt for now, knowing that what are your options right now? That's who you go for. But then two players down the list in 11th in 5-on-5 shots on goal. Tage Thompson. This guy continues to check a lot of boxes for the Montreal Canadiens. I know people are constantly saying, oh, he's not good defensively. Face-offs. This, that. He's playing for the Buffalo Sabres, you guys. Like, we have to keep everything is within the context of he plays for a complete dookie franchise. Like, it's not fair to hold that against him. So those are just some options, but I think you'll find that acquiring a guy who shoots the puck a lot is going to be difficult. I will say right below Tage Thompson, Nazem Kadri. So, there are options there that have been in the Canadiens' wheelhouse to start this season. All right. Let's do one more before we head to our break. This one comes to us from Michael. With both our goalies suffering from issues that they didn't have last year, has there been a change in goalie coaching since then? Do they share the same goalie coaching? They seem to be out of position and sliding all over the place, which I don't remember them doing last year. Thanks for everything you do, Mike. Thank you, Mike. I can answer this one pretty quickly here. The Canadiens goaltending coach is Eric Raymond. He was the goaltending coach last year, and I think he has been for a few years now. I think this is a reflex that hockey fans have when goaltending goes south. Now we talk about the goalie coach. When goaltending goes well, like last year, did anybody know that Eric Raymond was the Canadiens goalie coach because Sam Montembeault is playing well?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a goalie coach is a thankless job because it means that if we're talking about the goalie coach, it means the goaltending has gotten so bad and has not repaired itself that you look at the next up the line, and that's the guy. I don't know much about what goaltending coaches do, but I know enough to know that I don't think he's responsible for both of these goalies struggling early on in the season. All right, let's leave that there. When we come back, we have a question for the ages. Is Olé-ing okay? We'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The holidays are amazing, but they can also get overwhelming fast. Travel, gifts, parties, year-end expenses. It's really easy to lose track of your money this time of year. And that's exactly why Monarch has become such a game changer for me. If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you need to be using Monarch. Rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, simple dashboard. The holiday spending category can be a lifesaver. You see exactly what's left in your gift and travel budget in real time. It's a lot of those small gifts that you end up buying for people that rack up and you don't realize really how much you're putting into that budget. In minutes, you can check your net worth, link all your accounts, and keep track of your contributions before deadlines. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, we are back. And before we move on, first of all, thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. We always love saying that. And also, we're going to have a network-wide announcement next week. Not going to tease too much, but if you're listening to the show every day, and maybe another Locked On podcast show in another sport every day, you're going to want to hang around for that one. So our everydayers, make sure you are continuing your streaks. We'll have an announcement for you next week. All right, let's hit another question here. This one is about Olé-ing from our friend, and I'm scrolling to find it. Here it is. It's from Ted Clare, who was a trivia champion this week, I might add. Ted asks, as an older fan of the Canadiens, I'm not a fan of the Olé, Olé, Olé singing. I feel like it's a death knell most of the time that results in teams evening up the score. Is this just me being a grumpy old Gen X member, or does anyone else cringe and hold their breath once the singing begins? Don't get me wrong. Being a part of the atmosphere when it happens is incredible, but it makes me sit on the edge of my seat as well. Laura, I'll let you open this one up. What are your thoughts on Olé-ing at the Bell Center?
I know you and I are on different sides of this, but I truly, in my heart, believe that premature Olé-ing causes goals against. So I'm not against the Olé-ing. I love it, but I want it at the end of the game when it's been put away. Because when you're doing it in the middle of the game, and I know we've had some, we were even part of a moment like that when the Canadiens were playing against Toronto. But what happened immediately after that was there was a goal against. I know they changed the goalies. I know all of that kind of stuff. But I feel like Olé-ing has a place, and the place is at the end of the game, not in the middle, not with 5 minutes to go, with a minute or 30 seconds to go. That's where you should Olé. Personally, I love it. I know it's a borrowed soccer chant. I don't care. I enjoy it. It just don't do it prematurely. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lesson here in correlation versus causation. I think there's a lesson to be learned in that the Canadiens fans are often singing that song when they're winning. When you are winning, you are more likely to give up the next goal, regardless of whether or not we're singing, sitting on our hands, breakdancing. But I get it. Being a fan is believing that you have that impact. Now, Laura, point of order, I do want to remind you what happened when we were at the game. I want to just show what a good friend I am. When they started Olé-ing in the Bell Center, when it was 4-0, I said nothing. I sat there. I didn't say a thing. And Anderson scores on the empty net. And I looked at you and I said, can we Olé now? And you said yes. Because I was a guest in your home. And I felt that it was the right thing to do. Do I personally believe that had anything to do with anything? No. And I also personally believe, knowing the number that came back on my receipt of how much that ticket cost, that if you pay for that seat and you don't bother anybody at the game, you're allowed to do whatever you want.
Yes.
So that is, I think, the complete range of emotion that this show has on Olé.
On Olé. I'm just going to say, though, but if you paid that much, don't you want to walk away with a win? That's all I'm saying.
Yes. I very much did, to the point where I was literally bargaining with myself going to that game. I'm like, okay, maybe I think 2 goals is fine. I think if I see 2 goals, I'm cool.
Look what you did, Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. No, I think I understand both sides of this coin. That I also think too, I was starting to think, because I thought in the Colorado game you could hear some Colorado fans Olé-ing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people get really bothered by that. And part of me is like, I don't get
No.
bothered by that at all.
No, you were well within your rights. Like, we would troll you that way too if it was happening here, right?
There's that aspect of it for sure. Because if you were here, we'd be doing it to you earnestly, not
Yes.
in a jeering way.
Yeah.
But I also think that how many other teams in this league have a chant like that? I don't think there is one.
No.
Nobody does this.
No.
So like that is a superpower that this team has that nobody else does. So like, you know, of course you can do that. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you guys do. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like you know, it's kind of weird that the other teams don't really have something like that. It's because I will say, having done it in a lot of different arenas, it's super fun. I do really enjoy it.
It is fun.
All right, let's do a couple, like a question here actually from two different listeners regarding Bryce Pickford. Claude Sauvé asks, is it too early to get excited about Bryce Pickford, Habs defenseman, defensive prospect for the Medicine Hat Tigers, who's actually the captain of that team? And Randy Hansen says, Bryce Pickford is lighting it up in the WHL this year again. Minus the fighting, he reminds me of Wendell Clark. Would you make him a forward considering the logjam at D like Toronto did with Clark? Let's answer Claude's first. This is Bryce Pickford was a later pick. You know, not really. We're not looking at him making the NHL within the next few years if he makes it at all. With that said, he's coming off of
whenever we want.
For sure, he's coming off of a night where he had 3 points and I believe completed a Gordie Howe hat trick, and the goal that he scored in that game was fantastic. I think that he has a real outside shot to becoming a National Hockey League player. I think him being a right shot, offensive minded defenseman makes him sort of duplicative on the Canadiens.
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say that all of the Canadiens defense have panned out between now and 3 years from now?
Yeah.
And the whole point of drafting too is to collect all of these dudes and then use them as trade chips. Mm-hmm. And hope that maybe Bryce Pickford develops into a guy that you can flip for a legitimate difference maker.
I like when you said that. It makes me feel like the GMs are all like kindergartners and they were collecting like little figurines and then they're fighting over like trading them
Pogs.
in like the kindergarten. Pogs.
They're all collecting Pogs. That's what this is. And like we have a Bryce Pickford Pog, and they're like, nobody knows who that is yet. And then in a couple of years, the Bryce Pickford Pog is all anybody wants. Mm-hmm. Like that's your goal when you're picking, you know, mid picks, late round picks. I do. This is a second defenseman that we're talking about converting to a forward, and I just want to emphasize how rare this is done effectively. I mean, Matthew Dandino was the trivia answer yesterday. I don't think that's a player who actually did it, right? Yeah. He switched in between forward and defense. And I don't think it worked. At least in Montreal, it didn't work. You know, Brent Burns is one of the only examples of it happening at an elite level.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't. I think a lot of people come to this conclusion, and there's no proof of concept that would actually work.
Yeah, I think it's because, you know, right now we're very, very underwhelmed with our bottom six.
Sure, I think so, and I think that's temporary. I think we have to expand our minds a little bit, not be prisoners of the moment. The moment is that there's like 8 guys hurt, and wouldn't you know it, when you lose 8 dudes, the guys that you have playing lower in your lineup might not be that good.
Yeah.
Again, I talk about Joe Veleno. You guys think he's bad? Yeah. So do the Canadiens. He was the 13th forward coming out of training camp when everyone was healthy.
Yes.
Anyway, I still, speaking of the bottom 6, I think if Sammy Blake keeps playing the way he's playing with Laval, he will be in Montreal tout suite. He will be here very soon. I don't think that's going to take long at all. He's been playing really well. All right, let's hit our trivia and head out of here for the week. Yesterday's game in the shootout was not the first time the Habs have beaten the Jets in a shootout. Back in 2023, the Canadiens won 4-3 in a shootout. Just like in Wednesday's game, the Habs' first shooter scored, and the rest of the shots were stopped. Who scored that goal? Laura, do you have a guess on this one?
I do not know. I was going to guess Cole Caulfield, though.
Someone else guessed Cole Caulfield. It was not Cole Caulfield. It was Nick Suzuki before all of his shootout powers were evaporated by the Monstars from Space Jam. I don't know what happened to that guy. He cannot score the shootout now. Yes, it was Nick Suzuki on Laurent Boisvert, who was trying to make a comeback to the National Hockey League. We'll see where that ends up. But Super Rain, Purple Lois, and HJ Cuneo had that one correct.
Mhm.
Today's question, we're talking about outdoor games. Who was the last Montreal Canadian to score in an outdoor game? So last time the Montreal Canadiens played in an outdoor game and scored a goal, who was this player? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Get it to us any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that is going to do it for us today and this week on Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcast, and making us at Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I really do love saying that. It's fun to be a part of that. You can find the show Locked On Canadiens just about everywhere we're posting things: Instagram, TikTok, Bluesky primarily. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available every day on wherever you get those shows. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL Game Night is bringing you the local analysis that you love from all 32 NHL franchises. So it's a must listen. Go subscribe to them. Locked On NHL, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Actor Stick. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the back-to-back this weekend. We'll be back on Monday to break both those games down. Enjoy.